Hey guys, quick production note before you dive in. Our guests today all joined remotely, and we ran into some connection issues. We thought the conversation was rich enough to still share with you as is, so we hope you enjoy.
Hey everybody, welcome to another session of Ramble and Mosey, where we talk about critical issues in conservation and outdoor recreation. Celebrating the people and places that make Michigan special, we hope you're as inspired by these stories as we are. I'm Jonathan Jaros. I'm your host for Ramble and Mosey, and super excited to have a couple of close friends join us today. Pete DeBoer is the Director of Donor Relations at the Community Foundation for Muskegon County, and Bob Lukens is the Director of Community Development for Muskegon County as well. So if you haven't picked up on it, we're going to talk Muskegon and Muskegon County today, which is actually really exciting to me and to these guys as well. Pete, in addition to being a Community Foundation employee, is also a recovering land conservancy, land protection specialist and director over his career. And Bob's got a really interesting combination of functions that fall under his gig. So we're going to dive into that a little bit, again, thinking about the cross-section of all the work that we do. Bob and Pete, welcome. How you guys doing?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us, Jonathan. We love Muskegon.
Feel a little bit like we're on like an early '90s FM talk show. It's Bob and Pete in the morning. So this will go a couple different ways. Bob, you were telling me a couple days ago about the combination of roles that you fill. So outside of the formal title, tell me a little bit about everything that you got your hands into with Muskegon County, please.
Yes, my title's kind of a misnomer. Community development directors traditionally are more involved in housing, activities. And my position with Muskegon County is I'm director of the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the County Parks Department, the County Airport, and the County Transit System. Now I have professional managers for the transit system and the airport and also the parks. But I am most involved with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and the parks. The other two are very specialized, so I have to rely on my managers to handle that.
Right on. Sounds reminds me of like almost a quality of life department, like things that are impacting quality of life overall. And Pete, your role with the Community Foundation is also a bit of a misnomer. So there's your day job, and there's the ways that it infiltrates community development and economic development. What's going on there?
Yeah, so officially my job title deals with development, so fundraising, donor relations, and so community foundations kind of work on money inside and then pushing grants outside. I'm on the money inside, but I get to show up a lot of places where Bob is talking about all sorts of different things, and we're really encouraged to push into the community, and so I get to do a lot of fun things. I still keep my head in conservation, where Bob lets me tag along with his field trips, and so really being able to push conservation from my role at the Community Foundation is a good one. So there's the day job, and then there's the fun stuff with the day job that I get to do. So I think that pretty much covers it.
When you've had the privilege of working at not one but two land conservancies, correct?
I did. So I started my career, Jonathan. What I do is I basically hang around different shops, and then they see me enough, and then they just hire me. And so I was at the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy for about 5 years at the start of my career, and then moved up to Land Conservancy of West Michigan, so the central West Michigan area, and did that for about 12 years, mostly on the project side. So I got to bum around a lot of cool places: Pere Marquette River, Ludington, Newaygo County, Oceana County, down into Muskegon, and all the way down to Saugatuck. So, that it's really a passion of mine, and like I said, Bob lets me play in his area every once in a while, so I still get my fix of land conservation, and you let me play in some of this stuff too. So I appreciate that.
Somehow in my head, I picture that, the two of you heading to check out new projects or meet with donors, and it's sort of like, did you invite me? No, I thought you invited me, and then kind of figure out on the way who's actually dragging who where. Remind me too, I should know this. You're both from West Michigan, correct?
Actually, I'm originally from Chicago. I've only been here 12 years, but I consider myself a Michigander now for sure.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I'm a West Michigan native. I'm about 10 or 15 miles away from where I actually grew up. And Muskegon wasn't my home growing up, but had a lot of time in Muskegon. So, but generally, this West Michigan area has been home most of my life.
Right on, right on. Well, I want to dive into, no pun intended with Lake Michigan, but I want to dive into Muskegon County a little bit for those that aren't familiar with where we're at geographically. Pete and I have talked a number of times too about, yeah, exactly. If we hold up the mitten, we can point to it, but most people I think are probably pointing to Grand Rapids or Ottawa County without knowing it when they do that. So, um, give us the lowdown on Muskegon County. What is Muskegon County? Where are we at? And then we can start into some of the stuff that's actually going on.
Well, I would say we're west central Michigan is the way I sometimes describe it. We're between Grand Haven and the Whitehall Montague area, which is still within Muskegon County, about 45 miles or so west of Grand Rapids. Takes about 45 minutes to get here or to get there. So we're at a very convenient location. We're at the terminus of I-96 too, so that makes it kind of simple. And right on Lake Michigan.
And I think so many times, and that's kind of the fallacy of our state. We oftentimes use the lakes as a reference, but then a particular community gets attached to a lake versus another. We had this deep dive conversation about is Lake St. Clair part of Metro Detroit or is it part of the Thumb? Like where does it go? And same thing with Lake Michigan. There's a whole diversity of communities and a whole huge great bunch of folks, but we tend to associate one particular city or two particular cities with the natural resources that are around them. Speaking of which, not too far back, some new park openings in Muskegon County, which have been pretty exciting. I know both of you had a hand in. Um, Tell us what's going on there, and then a little bit about. I mean, obviously, a number of these projects started pre-COVID, but COVID's led us into some different patterns in terms of close to home use. So, what have you been seeing? What's been happening in your neck of the woods?
Sure, it was a great story. Pete came to me probably back in 2020, maybe even 2019, and let me know about this property here in Muskegon County that was a former sand mine, the Nugent sand mine, and it was right on Lake Michigan, basically. It had been, or it was at that time, nearing or at the end of its useful life as a sand mine. So Pete said there could be an opportunity there to, somehow gather the resources to purchase this property as a park. It has two inland lakes. As I said, it's right on Lake Michigan. And basically right over a dune is Lake Michigan. And on the south portion of the property, 377-acre property, on the south portion of that property is a large lake with a 2.2-mile trail that surrounds the lake itself. And it's quite forested because it was the first portion of the sand mine that was mined. And then the north side has another lake, Lake Michigan Access, but it was the most recently mined portion of the property, and it's rougher. It needs a lot of help, actually. Environmentally, we need to develop some trails on that portion of the property and be able to get people and visitors down to Lake Michigan because, as I mentioned, it is on a dune. But it was a fantastic piece of property. Working with the MDNR Trust Fund, we were able to secure $10 million in $10 million plus in DNR Trust Fund grants. And then we had land donations from the property owner worth about $8 million. So it's an $18 million project, and we're just happy as can be to have it because it's a great location. It's in the urban area, and again, it has that Lake Michigan access.
It's absolutely stunning. I had the chance to hike the trail you're talking about, and just absolutely blown away by how close it is to everyone, and at the same time, just a world away in terms of the feeling you get when you're there. Um, One of the things that we know, our state parks, especially in Lake Michigan, become increasingly crowded and in many cases overcrowded. Have you seen what's visitor use look like, and what's been happening?
I think we subscribe to a program called Placer AI, and it can give you visitation statistics and other demographic information. So we're seeing, I think in 2023, there were about 70,000 visits to the property by about, I think it was about 20,000 people. So we have lots of return visitation, and a good percentage of that are the local residents in Muskegon County and Northern Ottawa County residents. But a good portion of them are people that are vacationing in the area too, or maybe here for a conference or something that need to get out. So we are seeing visitors from outside the area, considerable distances on occasion, that will, visit the park too.
It's curious to me, interesting. You mentioned Placer. It's actually the second region that I've heard starting to use Placer for understanding their park systems, which I think is fascinating. Detroit Parks Coalition just recently used the tool to understand visitor use as well, and were blown away by how much they were undercounting use in users. And so really enjoy hearing that Placer's helped you guys out as well. And Pete, that particular property, Muskegon County, obviously one of the key partners, the Community Foundation. Who are some of the other folks that helped make that happen?
So Bob's being very nice in that I got to walk down the street about 2 weeks after I started my job at the Community Foundation, didn't know what I was doing. And so I leaned back into my land conservation days and said, hey, Land Conservancy of West Michigan would really love to be able to partner with Muskegon County and look at some of this. So Land Conservancy was a big pusher of this. Their community partnerships program that they've been doing for decades, and really helping local municipalities in the trust fund projects has been a boon, and especially in this area, the northern pierhead of the Grand River to the southern pierhead of the Muskegon River. A couple of the two larger, I think the Grand River is the largest, and Muskegon River is the second largest rivers in the state. Connect those areas. This Dune Harbor Park that Bob was talking about is really interesting because it fills in a hole. And if you look at those two rivers and kind of where those connections are, the big pieces of public land that are now established, it's easy to see. I go simple when I can. That's a lot of the time because that's what I understand. You can see these big public areas that are blocked off for conservation, that are protected, and going from south to north, you have PJ Hoffmaster State Park that rolls right into Lake Harbor Park, which is in Norton Shores, and then up into this area that you get into the city of Muskegon that Bob was talking about with Dune Harbor, and then Pere Marquette Beach, which is this vast beach that really draws a lot of people in. It's really Muskegon's beach. And then just on the other side of the Muskegon River, you've got Muskegon State Park. So really all these partners that we're working with, City of Norton Shores, the Land Conservancy, the DNR, really looking at how we can connect these into the future. Because, man, it would be a huge draw. Bob mentioned that we have a lot of locals that are using these parks. I think this area is right on the verge of becoming a lot bigger because you have Ottawa County just to the south of us, Grand Rapids, which is the second largest metro area here in Michigan. It's not going to take long for people to discover Muskegon again.
You have to forgive my own ignorance. You just used the phrase "discover Muskegon again." What was Muskegon like historically? What's the kind of we sort of position Muskegon County in the state? But what is Muskegon County? It's not homogenous. So what are we looking at when we're trying to understand Muskegon County, both historically and demographically?
Yeah, and I know what I know, so people smarter than me are going to fill in holes that I miss out here. But historically, Muskegon was a boom town. First in the lumber era, Muskegon River had a lot of had having to do with building Chicago up and then rebuilding Chicago in the late 1890s from the historic fire that was there. That was then the lumber era was then replaced by the manufacturing area or the industrial revolution. And we had a lot of foundries and paper mills that were surrounded along Muskegon Lake. At one time in the past, the Charles Hackley days, late 19th century, early 20th century, that you had more millionaires per capita in Muskegon than you did anywhere else in the United States. Part of that really led to there was a big World War II production, a big tank facility that was here that led into the automotive era. And actually, one of the dunes here actually supplied a lot of the glass making as well. Pigeon Hill, which was a historic dune on the southern side of the Muskegon River, that's now depleted because they trucked a lot of that sand out. And like Bob had mentioned with Dune Harbor Park, that was a former sand mine as well. And Muskegon was significantly on the upswing more than a lot of areas in West Michigan. I relate it throughout the state to a Jackson or a Saginaw or a Flint, kind of these not a Grand Rapids or a Detroit area, but kind of that next tier down. Well, then came the rise of some of these tourist areas, significant tourist areas, Saugatuck Holland area along the shoreline, Grand Haven up to Ludington, up the Traverse City area. Well, Muskegon was really never a destination. It was more a place where people worked, a lot of middle class, blue collar workers. And because of that, and because of the manufacturing, I remember coming down to Muskegon. My folks were from Muskegon, coming down to Muskegon because it was where the shops were. But then you got out as soon as you possibly could because it was dirty, right? There's a lot of ash. I've talked to donors from the Community Foundation that talk about working downtown Muskegon and having to brush off their car from the soot in the air that was coming to some of these foundries. And Muskegon Lake is a deep water port. And so you had a lot of these ships that would come in that would be able to get into Muskegon and to be able to get some of this freight out. And so really was heavy, made a lot of millionaires, like I mentioned. But then we dealt with the aftermath of that pollution in Muskegon Lake. It's still an area of concern along the Great Lakes. And so we're working towards getting that off the AOC list, but not only were we dealing with the pollution, but a lot of folks, the northern migration, a lot of folks of color came up from the south to work in these factories in Muskegon. And historically redlined area of Muskegon Heights is a area that was that is now dominated with people of color, particularly Black folks that live in Muskegon, and that area has really seen a downturn in a lack of investment. And so you're dealing with a lot of factors here. Muskegon County is only about, the population is about 200,000 people, but you have a lot of mix that you don't get in a lot of different areas, especially north of here. But you don't get until you hit Grand Rapids or a Jackson or a Saginaw. So there's a lot of different factors going on here.
You and I have talked about this before, but me living on the east side of the state, you on the west, Muskegon and Saginaw in many ways, to me, often feel like the same city, in good ways and in bad. And I think there's a really powerful story that the history helps us create, and then also some pathways to what's next. And it's spoke of my own naivety before. Someone talks to me about Muskegon. I'm like, yeah, the Great Lakes Surf Festival, and Pigeon Hill to me is a brewery, not a sand dune, by the way. And music and the farmers market, and like these are all the things that I think of as an outsider. But realizing also at the same time I'm popping in for a day or two and then heading back to my place. How does that juxtaposition play out for the work that both of you do? There's the history, there's the present, there's the future, and then there's also obviously um, residents of Muskegon County and those like me just coming in for a day or two. So how does that, where's that tension play out in your work?
Well, I'd say, I think residents are beginning to get used to the idea of Muskegon as a tourism or visitor destination now. The change that we've seen in the downtown area, literally when I got here, there was nothing downtown. The Froenthal Theater was there. There was a hotel there, couple restaurants and bars, but nothing that you would go out of your way to go to. Since that time, since about 2013 or 14, the growth has really been explosive in the downtown area, and we've had other restaurants. The deck opened out on Pure Marquette Beach, which is the main city beach, as Pete mentioned, and that just draws people from all over West Michigan now. It's become quite a huge attraction. And the cultural and arts amenities of the area, I think, are what are drawing people in now. And it is a multi-ethnic community. I mean, it's very diverse. So it is different than a lot of the other beach town communities, as we call them. And I think people appreciate that. They really do. And another thing that I think is really interesting and how it kind of relates to the outdoors and the work that we're doing is there's a real contingent of folks that are interested in trail building here. And I think trail building will be the key to connect all of these green spaces and get people from communities like Muskegon Heights that may not have the access to transportation or the kind of the freedom of owning a car or a bike. If we can get trails into those areas, it will allow people to get out into the outdoors. And I know there's work going on right now in downtown Muskegon Heights. They received some federal funding and it's state funding, I believe, to redevelop their main downtown, and they're adding bike lanes. I was just at a meeting last night here or not bike lanes, a bike trail. I was just at a meeting last night here in Norton Shores, and they're adding a 2.5-mile trail along Lake Harbor Park, or along Lake Harbor Road, that will connect Lake Harbor Park basically to Dune Harbor Park if you take some of the side streets. But it's a 2.5-mile trail. It will really help make those connections that we so desperately need here.
Has there been a long-term vision? So thinking about trail connections, sort of countywide, or even sort of West Michigan as a whole, are there historic plans that are now trying to be put in place, or is this new or newer?
I think it's a newer initiative. There are some things on paper now, and we're working with West Michigan Trails to develop these trails into a concrete plan that we can really build on. West Michigan Trails also did a kind of a wayfinding and signage plan too that we'd like to implement here in Muskegon County. It's being implemented in some of the other communities in West Michigan to have a coordinated wayfinding system, which I think will help. But a lot of it now is just getting these trail plans on paper. They've kind of been ideas. Everybody has the ideas of connecting these green spaces, and I think now finally we're putting them on paper, and we're going to go after funding for a full-fledged trail plan that can really help develop the area.
Right on. What's this is a guess, obviously, but 5 years from now, 10 years, 15, what are some of the things that you'd want folks to look out for? Like what's coming down the pipe sooner than later? Just mentioned the connection between two of the parks. Is there other infrastructure within the various cities, the various communities that you're excited about? Secrets that you're not supposed to tell, kind of thing that are happening, good stuff?
Well, we hear that they are going to be working on the Muscatawa Trail, repaving that. And there's some other smaller trail connections that should be happening within the next couple of years. But I think a lot of it will hinge on what that plan looks like and some of the right of ways and permissions that would need to be made to be able to develop trails. So, that's all part of this plan too. So there'll be a lot of work to do within the next few years, and I'm getting near retirement, so I'll be doing it, in my free time.
And say that's not how it works. You can retire all you want. The job doesn't leave you once you retire.
Exactly.
Pete, what are you seeing from the community foundation lens, both investment and interest?
Yeah, it's something that pops to my mind is, talking about the kind of the history that Muskegon has been on. I think I mentioned Charles Hackley before, and a lumber baron, right? His house, along with one of his business partners, Hume, is right downtown, part of the Lakeshore Museum Center complex. We also have from his age, we have the Muskegon Museum of Art. That was kind of in its heyday in Charles Hackley's time. And Bob, you maybe have talked about this, but thinking about folks that are in a Chicago or in a Detroit area and that are really being drawn to Traverse City or Harbor Springs, how do we get those people to stay over for make it from a couple of hours to an overnight stay? The Muskegon Museum of Art, or MMA, is going through about a $12 million campaign right now that they secured. They're opening up the museum. They're more than doubling the size of that museum. They don't have the room to display all what they have at this point. And so this will give them the opportunity to display more. For example, I'm sitting next to a book here. They own some of the only remaining, and I'm going to get this art term wrong, but the lithographs, I believe, from Edward Curtis, that did a lot of the work in the American West before colonization really took over. MMA did an exhibit of his about 5 years ago, and they own a lot of those. So really interesting stuff from the cultural side. Bob mentioned the farmers market as well. We have a lot of folks that care about Muskegon. Maybe their kids have moved away. Maybe their kids have come back. We have started to hear those stories as well. But we were able to secure the lead donation for the farmers market when that went in about 10 years ago. And that's really spurred some things. And one of the things that I see sitting in my seat and being able to have experience in some other metro areas, use that term loosely, in Grand Rapids or Kalamazoo, and into northern Ottawa County, what I see in Muskegon is the ability to be flexible and the ability to accept new things. We are in the midst of reinventing ourselves. The lake used to be something that people didn't want to see because the foundries backed up to it, the timber mills backed up to it. The dilution is the solution to pollution, right? That's why we're sitting on the AOC designation at this point. One of the main hotels downtown that is connected to the convention center doesn't face the lake because it was built in the mid 70s, early 80s. It doesn't face the lake. So you hear about places like Cleveland, right? The mistake by the lake. And I think Muskegon is kind of that in a smaller scale. We used to have folks to come into the community foundation. We sit on the second floor of the Frauenthal Center, and the Muskegon Mall was there, built in the mid 60s when a lot of these urban areas went through one of their shifts, and the Muskegon Mall took up a lot of downtown. They kind of Western Avenue has a fantastic history that's only piecemeal together at this point. The mall covered a lot of that area, and when the mall came down in the early 2000s, it was literally a sand pit in downtown Muskegon. So the saying at the community foundation was you brought people into our main boardroom and you sat them with their backs to the wall because they didn't want to see the sand pit, right? Now we're able to sit them on the other side. They can see these areas. They can see down to the farmers market. They can look at Western Avenue, which was almost completely rebuilt. Right. So Bob's got an interesting perspective being here for about 10 or 15 years, and what he has seen in his Muskegon lifetime is really interesting too. So really looking at it from the perspective of like, yeah, okay, maybe we are down a little bit more than some of these areas, but we're able to be flexible. We're able to look at some new things. One of the historic, I think it was called the skyscraper filing cabinet, was developed here in Muskegon at the Shaw Walker plant. And that old factory is now being redeveloped. There's a developer who's done a lot of things in Muskegon, but especially in Grand Rapids. He's taken on that project. He's taking on what was the Sappy paper plant that was demolished about 10 years ago, and redeveloping that. That will really be an interesting connection piece between downtown and the Pere Marquette lakeshore, Pere Marquette Beach lakeshore. So, just the opportunity to look at some of these things coming in is really interesting. And, like I said, maybe down a little bit further, but you show up to the lake, Jonathan, you show up to one of your favorite breweries, and you see this. You see like, oh, Pigeon Hill used to be an actual hill, right? Sand was trucked out because it was that manufacturing time. We wouldn't do that now, but that's what Muskegon was made on. And how do we reinvent ourselves and draw some more people in? So just kind of that flexibility to enter into this new era is really, really fascinating.
I think one of the interesting things that Pete just mentioned regarding the two properties, the former Shaw Walker property that's being redeveloped, and the Sappy paper mill, which is also being redeveloped. There's another pretty monumental project at the former Michigan Steel plant too, which is right on Lake Michigan. So these three projects alone will create something like 1,000 new homes, or condos, apartment type living spaces. But the investment is over almost $500 million. So it's just crazy the amount of work that's going on here. And within the next 3 years, I would say 2-3 years, you'll see all these things coming to fruition. And with that, come the people, and the people are looking for ways to recreate in the outdoors. And that's what we have to think about. Pete's group, our group, a lot of others in the area. How are we going to move these people around? How are we going to get them to these outdoor recreation spaces that they can enjoy? So, it's a challenge, but it's a lot of fun too.
Have you seen? It's my favorite reference, least favorite reference actually. The pandemic is often referred to at this point as if it were like 2 decades ago, right? It was this thing that happened to some past generation. Realistically, it's still impacting our development patterns and our uses and our work styles and everything now. Have you seen pandemic impacts on the type of recreation people are looking for, the type of activities or places? Has that shown up?
I would say so for sure. The pandemic really brought people outdoors, as you all know. You couldn't do much at home, and you'd get kind of bored, so people went outside. And it was one thing you could do with your family, was get out and recreate, go to the beach, go to the dunes, hike, hunt, fish, anything. So we saw a lot of that, and people are still outdoors. It kind of faded a bit as things opened up, but people are still very cognizant of what there is to do in the outdoors, and unique ways to do it. We also have here in northern Muskegon County at Muskegon State Park, the Muskegon Luge and Adventure Sports Park. And this is a really interesting story too, because it was built about 20 years ago or so as a winter luge. Back then we had winters. We had good snowy winters, and it was a very popular place. But what they're doing now is, in the past, I would say 7 years or so, with the changing climate, We have longer periods of warmth. Our summers are extending into September and even October now. So they were, and snow is diminishing too. So they have been, trying to reinvent themselves. So they've done a dual zip line out there, a new archery range. They opened their trails up, which are snow skiing trails, cross country trails. They've lit them and allow people to go out there at night and hike the lights, they call it, on a system that I think is about 3 miles, 4 miles or so out in the woods, really beautiful area. So, it's this constant reinvention here in Muskegon, and I think in all of West Michigan, to be honest with you. We're trying to, make it easy for our residents to enjoy the outdoors, but also make it easier for visitors to enjoy the outdoors, especially from the larger cities. Being the CVB director, that's what I'm looking for, to bring, new visitors here to spend their money and help improve our economy.
Pete, one of the things I love is the investments you take as a father. And so thinking about some of the transitions that COVID brought us, also thinking about what next generation is looking for. Where are some of the places that your kids like to take you, and notice that that's not where you like to take your kids? Where do they like to go? What do they enjoy?
Yeah, so they don't really have too much of a choice of being some outdoorsy kids. I kick them out of the house as much as I can. So I'm at the southern end of Muskegon County here, and so Hoffmaster State Park, with about 3 miles of Lake Michigan shoreline and some of the best dunes south of Sleeping Bear, is basically my backyard. So we are there a lot. Some of the other parks that we've mentioned already. Lake Harbor, Dune Harbor, are some favorite areas, but stretching up into the northern part of the county as well. There's some areas up in the Whitehall and Montague area. A personal favorite of mine, that means it's a personal favorite of my kids, is Flower Creek Dunes, right in the northern edge of Muskegon County, in the Montague area. It's got a pretty spectacular overlook. I don't know, I can't remember how far you go up, but it's got one of the best views, if you're able to make it up the stairs, of Lake Michigan, again, south of some of the bigger dunes north of us here. And that Montague Whitehall area is really interesting too. They have maybe not as much manufacturing past as the city of Muskegon or kind of the southern part of the county, but there's a pretty significant property up there that I know Bob has his eye on, and it could be a pretty massive get for this area from an outdoors standpoint. Old manufacturing plant up there, that's got some potential, and like Bob said, the state park area is a favorite. I could go on, Jonathan. I just want to mention one more. East Muskegon, part of the county, there's a new-ish within the last 5 years biking trail, Mosquito Creek, that's out on kind of the eastern stretch of Muskegon State Game Area, that follows Muskegon River out of the county up into Newaygo County. That's really a spectacular area. I know there's some areas there of oak savanna barrens up in that area, so I can geek out on my butterfly past. But those bike trails, I'm on the taller end of things, so getting me on a bike going down hills is probably not the smartest thing. There might be a concussion or two in my past, but for those that love that stuff, and they're hiking trails too, but it's really starting to draw some people in from the mountain biking side of things too. So it's really interesting from that area. And here's a sneak preview, or a sneak peek, I guess I should say. We were listening to an economist from Grand Valley State, Grand Rapids area, that came in. He comes in every January and does a talk in Muskegon. And he said, based on home prices, of course, homes are tough to get for anybody at this point, but compared to Kent and Ottawa County, Muskegon County has about a 20% reduction in price than the home prices in those two other neighboring counties. But he said it's not going to last long. He said, give it another 2 years and people have discovered Muskegon. And so, again, houses still are going quick, some of this pandemic era, but the resources that we have, that you have for whether you have kids or whether you love the outdoors, you can be in Muskegon County for a little bit cheaper price. It's actually why we ended up here from Ottawa County within the last 10 years. You can get significant dollar or bang for your buck, I guess I should say, from a housing perspective too.
Right on, right on. I think what I love, I'm hearing from both of you, and I absolutely love, is the sort of the realness and the warmth of a community thinking about what's next, thinking about what was, and not trying to ignore either one for the other, right? Like this idea of accepting and embracing all the good things that have happened in the past, and then looking forward and how to transform with that energy and that flexibility, as Pete pointed out, moving into the future. Diving into nerd land for a second, Pete opened the door on the economics. So Brookings Institution gives us these terms: older industrial cities and legacy communities. And I always feel really depressed when I hear those terms, right? Like an older industrial city. That does not inspire me whatsoever. But listening to the two of you get really jazzed up about what was an older industrial city and what's next. Bob, Pete mentioned housing. We've talked a little bit about places and a little bit about employment. As Muskegon County is thinking about what is and what will be, what are some of the lessons you've learned related to recruitment and retention, I guess, both of people and of businesses? And in particular, any successes or lessons learned from outdoor industry businesses in particular?
That's a good question. What we are seeing now in Muskegon County is we're seeing people that are teleworkers or, work from home folks. We're seeing a lot more of them from larger cities that are moving here because of, as Pete mentioned, the better costs for prices of homes, and just because it's connected community. We can really work from anywhere now, and what better place to work than right along the shores of Lake Michigan. So we're seeing that the Chamber of Commerce here in Muskegon is seeing that. The Greater Muskegon Economic Development Corporation is seeing that too. But we're also seeing some innovative industries that are coming in too. There's a manufacturer from Sweden that is here, and they just came here probably a year or so ago, and they manufacture the kind of the binding products for certain drugs. So that's going to be, I think, about a $600 million project that's happening up in the White Lake, Whitehall area. And then another really innovative thing that was just announced recently was there's going to be a large 250 megawatt solar farm built out in the eastern part of Muskegon County that Consumers Energy is going to be doing. So that's kind of a first for our area. Up north in Ludington, Consumers has the stored pop. What do they call it? The stored power reservoir.
Pump storage.
Pump storage reservoir up there that they use, and they also have a windmill farm up there. But I think this is the first large-scale solar farm that's going to be happening in Muskegon County, and that's on our wastewater facility just south of Mosquito Creek that Pete was talking about earlier. But I think as far as the outdoor industry goes, my son is a tournament fisherman, and I know more than I probably should about tournament fishing here in West Michigan. And he tells me that there are a lot of smaller businesses in West Michigan, not specifically in Muskegon, although there are a couple here, that are producing fishing tackle and gear. We also have an outdoor clothing manufacturer that's based here in Muskegon County. So I think, as some of these smaller entrepreneurs are developing their concepts and ideas for business, and specifically outdoor business, they're looking for these types of areas, that are open to new ideas, as Pete mentioned, and that can help these businesses succeed. So, it's kind of yet to be determined, but we're keeping our eye on it here too, because it's a wonderful thing to have in your community as it relates to the outdoors.
I know I'm super stoked to come check out a whole lot of things that I didn't know about Muskegon County, both the places and the people. Obviously, there's just a ton of work that the two of you and a whole cast of other folks and other organizations, both municipal and non-governmental and just even in sort of informal, put into making Muskegon County just this amazing place that it is. How do you guys stay jazzed up? What's your inspiration? What motivates you? What gets you out of the bed in the morning?
Well, I would say for me, just the explosive growth that's happening here. It seems like something new is happening every day, or there's some challenge that needs to be overcome, or idea that needs to be built upon. So, there's always something interesting to work on here, and that's what keeps me going. Also, with the various departments that I mentioned earlier that I oversee, there's just always something there. Transit and airports, there's always something happening.
Pete, what about you? What inspires you?
Yeah, I think I'm able to sit in a pretty unique and privileged place in that I talk with folks who have made their living here or have their roots here. And so to be able to work with those folks that want to invest in Muskegon County, but also see the groups that are coming up. We have an active Muskegon Young Black Professionals group. We have a business equity initiative fund at the Community Foundation that is investing in women entrepreneurs, especially women of color entrepreneurs. The downtown Muskegon has this cool incubator space that is, we call it the chalets. So they're small incubator businesses before people go out and get larger brick and mortar. So, that's a partnership with the city of Muskegon. And so, back on my theme of flexibility moving into the future, that is really the fun thing about what Bob and I get to do within the county of Muskegon and seeing things and inviting new people in. It's really, we feel like it's a community on the rise, but you don't get this combined with, I'm biased here, but combine this with the Lake Michigan shoreline with a thriving scene culturally that's coming back up. Muskegon Pride Fest is in its third year and really something that's taken off. So the both from stretching from the folks who have been here, but then some of the folks that are maybe looking at Muskegon in different ways, and to be able to speak to that and to be right in the middle of it is a fun thing. So to be able to raise kids here is really cool. I know Bob raised his kids here. And still have this incubator space for families and young people, but then have that connection to older generations too is really I feel right at home here, and so it's a cool area to be.
Well, on that note, can't wait to see what happens. Lots happening, as we already talked about. Can't wait to see what this year brings. Can't wait to see what the next 5 years brings for Muskegon. It just sounds and is a place that more people need to spend some time. More people need to live and recreate, and frankly help conserve some of the lands too.
Thanks again for checking out another episode of Ramble and Mosey. Support for this work is courtesy of the C.S. Mott Foundation and the Conservation Fund. Thought leadership, as always, by Parallel Solutions, and production by Anna Moya. Hope you enjoyed today, and we'll catch you all soon.